honestly, the Anthony Duclair deal, I think, is another really good deal for the Islanders because we saw it. We were reacting live on the first day of free agency, and this is a pretty common trend on free agency. There's a lot of teams that shell out long-term deals and a lot of money for guys. Good players get paid like great players, and it's a little bit scary. But for Anthony Duclair at 28 years old, he gets a 4-year deal at $3.5 million. I think for me, Mitch, I was thinking I think we both assumed like, man, is he going to get like a 7-year deal here? Like what kind of contract is this going to end up being? 4 years is a nice comfy spot for me at his age, right? You have him for age 28, 29, 30, and 31. Perfect. Yeah. And then once we figured out it was going to be a 4-year deal, while we were waiting for the AAV, I was thinking it was going to come in around 4.25 to 4.75 was my window where I thought it was going to land. And coming in at 3.5, I think is fantastic value for someone who, as of right now, is probably going to play on the top line, but at an absolute minimum is adding speed to your top six.
Yeah, like he got a $500,000 bump yearly over his last contract, which isn't a big bump. And of course, he didn't produce that much for most of the season. 27 points in 56 games for San Jose isn't a whole lot, right? That's a 40-point player if I did the math right. Yeah, 27 over 56. That's a 40-point player rounded up. But he did go off in Tampa Bay with 15 points in 17 games. Much, much better in terms of the pacing out to a 72-point player. I don't think we're getting a 72-point player. Maybe the potential is there, but we're not paying him as one, which is the important part here. You're getting a $500,000 bump for a guy who has scored 30 goals in the past once, right? Yeah, just the one time, just to make sure I've got the numbers right. Yes. But the potential is there for more if you play with better players, which could very well be the case for the New York Islanders. When it came in at 3.5, I think we were both jubilant is the word I'm going to use here, because that was not the price point we thought it was going to come at.
No, not at all. We thought that was going to be, like almost $1 million more than that. And for me, how I'm viewing this, and that was my reaction at the time, like there has to be more than just Anthony Duclair. Like if the Islanders their only moves are bringing back Mike Riley and Anthony Duclair, I don't think it's enough this offseason. But for the price point in which they've got him and what he could potentially add to this lineup, I think they're a better team now than they were a week ago before free agency happened when we were recording our last episode.
Yeah, 100%. They are a better team with him in the lineup. I'm not and have never been particularly stoked to bring him in. That doesn't mean I don't like that the Islanders did. I like what they did in terms of the contract. You're bringing in a guy who's got potential at that price point and at that term. That's great. This is not the guy. I don't think that you plug on the top of the lineup and be like, fixed, we're good, we're all right. Great player. Sorry, I shouldn't say great player. Good player.
Good.
I like that you're adding. There's an upgrade there for sure. You bring him in and it can bump people down, but there's still a spot on the top line that still needs to be filled. It's not to say that Anthony Duclair cannot ever be a first line player. If everything goes right, maybe he could. It's not that guaranteed first line talent, which I know is kind of rich because I don't expect we've got the assets to pull one out, although you never know, right? There's some weird trades going on in the NHL. Like look at what Edmonton pulled out of Buffalo for a third liner.
Yeah, but like it's the NHL. GMs are weird. They value some players more than others for whatever reason. Again, I don't exactly get it, but just getting back to Duclair here for a second.
Yeah,
they overall, like I wasn't, and you the same way as you said. Like we weren't necessarily pounding the drum saying like this is the guy. Like you have to come away with Anthony Duclair. But again, when I make the comparison to what some of these other deals and what some of these other contracts you were looking at, I think the Islanders made it out okay on the first day of free agency. They came out where they didn't give any crazy term, they didn't give crazy AAV. on any of these guys. I think they got 2 pretty good value contracts. The only thing for me, and again, I kind of just want to do the full conversation and talk about like any potential downside. He has bounced around the league a lot. He's been on 8 different teams and is still only 28 years old. He'll be 29 in August, actually. So that is maybe like the only red flag for me. But I think worst case scenario, because where the Islanders paid him, you have a above average third liner, but you could potentially have, if things break right, a under market value top 6 player.
Yeah. So like when we look at the contract itself and in relation to other contracts, and this is where the most of the positivity comes from. Again, Duclair, fine player, good addition, upgraded over some players who might have to vamoose, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But you get him at $3.5 million, which is when you consider our previous like middle 6 players, which is what I think Anthony Duclair is. Most of our middle 6 players were $5 million players beforehand. In Kyle Palmieri, Jean-Gabriel Pajot, right? Like just to name 2 right off the top of the hop there. That's $5 million. Josh Bailey was another one for a while, although he wasn't making 5. It was a little bit more than that. Like that's what our middle 6 wingers were like. And we just got 2 now with Pierre Engvall at a combined $6.5 million. Sure, Pierre Engvall is until his son explodes. But it's still a combined $6 million for guys who should be decent players in that middle 6, where we used to pay one guy $5 million to do that. And these guys are bringing these, I'm not going to say tangible qualities because it's hard to, I guess, quantify it. Well, maybe not. They bring speed, right? They can both skate quite well. They're both quite fast, which is something that the Islanders didn't have. It fits with Patrick Roy's system. And Patrick Roy does like to play with Anthony Duclair, or does like to coach, I should say, Anthony Duclair, right? He called him up saying, I want you on my team. And Duclair's like, okay, I'm in. Because he's coached him before at the junior level. And they did very well. They did very good things together. So they bring something to the table that the Islanders haven't had. And at the price point, it's impossible to not like it. It's impossible. I can't think of one person to be like, this is a bad deal.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.